542. Crazy Talks with Wise People, Part 2, with Michael Croaker from Australia. Um, we have had interview with him, I think 2 weeks ago, and now he's back because he's so interesting. And we were not able to cover everything. I wasn't able to cover everything that I wanted to ask him about. So now he's back. Thank you for finding time with us again, Michael Croaker. By the way, for those who have not watched our episode, a very interesting episode of Michael Croaker, you can still watch our podcast, and I think it's entitled Michael Croaker, of course, Michael Croaker, head of Entertainment Village Roadshow, theme parks in Victoria, Victoria, Australia. He's also a speaker, a coach, and an industry podcast host. And of course, he's got his MBA, a very interesting person. Thank you once again.
My pleasure. Good to see you again.
Warm welcome, Michael.
My pleasure. Good to be here.
Yeah, and you're always welcome. And you're always welcome to come to Scotland too.
I would love that.
And I think I'm now speaking with another artist, and we are thinking of putting up I don't know if, like, she's a painter, so we might do some painting exhibit in Australia in coordination with you. I don't know. We're just cooking something. We'll let you know.
Good stuff.
Okay. Now let's start. We've got a lot of questions to ask you, actually. How do you ensure your artistic vision aligns with the brand's identity and resonates with the target audience?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a number of ways that we connect with our customer and connect with what's working for them, what they enjoy, what they'd like to see enhanced or revisited. So we have a team that's completely dedicated to guest analytics. And that voice of customer is really important. It becomes the compass for steering our ticketing strategy, our attractions planning, and our entertainment calendar. So that's one way in which we do that. One of the most important things that we have to focus on is the fact, particularly at Warner Brothers Movie World, where we represent one of the biggest entertainment brands on the planet, not only with their film catalogue, but also their DC superhero characters. Some of the most iconic characters of all time. Then, of course, you've got the Looney Tunes. So we are in very regular conversation with our friends at Warner Brothers in the US. And so for the Movie World Park, we very much work hand in hand with how the characters are brought to life from a park experience perspective. So that relationship is very important. And then with SeaWorld, our intellectual property partner is, with SeaWorld, we have Nickelodeon. So we spend equally a lot of time with our friends at Nickelodeon, just ensuring that the things that we're doing with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Dora the Explorer or Paw Patrol is on point. So there's kind of two ways that we come at that from a brand perspective: by staying closely connected to our brand partners and by staying closely connected to the voice of the customer. And those two things are probably the simplest way to let you know how we address that.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, you've been doing this for about 25 years, am I right?
I entered the industry when I was 18. I'm 55 now, so I still feel as young as I did.
Yes.
I originally, I think, as we mentioned in the last episode, I originally entered as a frontline employee in the attractions department operating the rides. And that grounding was very good for me. Kind of gave me a good sense of that direct guest experience and what that's like at a frontline level, rather than coming straight in at a senior executive level.
Good for you to share, because some of our audience might think that, people don't start from the bottom. They'd like to start as managers right away.
I hear that and I see that a lot. And ambition and vision are great things for young people to have. Resilience, tenacity, and the humility required to learn are
Humility, yeah.
equally as important. Um, so I would say to young people with high ambitions, maintain them, but don't be afraid to roll up the sleeves
Mm,
and get into the grassroots of any industry that you're looking to succeed in. That'll
mm,
serve you well when you find yourself perhaps at a higher tier than when you first started. You'll have
mm,
more empathy, more comprehension of how it is for the people that you're leading.
mm-hmm,
There's an old traditional way of thinking that we always have to lead from the front and
mm,
pulling people to a destination.
mm,
I often think about leadership in 360 degrees, that you want to be able to move almost in a circular fashion, able to get to the side of your team, able
mm,
to integrate within the core of your team, able to
mm,
get to the rear of your team and lead from behind,
mm,
empowering people at the front.
mm,
You can only really get that full 360-degree appreciation, I think, for leadership
mm.
if you're prepared to know what the people know at the very
Know
front
what
line
the
of your
people
business.
know. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Know their heartbeat, know their
Yeah.
mind. Yeah. Can you share an experience where you had to navigate creative disagreements within a team or with stakeholders? Or did this ever happen to you?
Oh, yeah, there's been many occasions.
Mm-hmm.
The challenge, I think mentioned in our last conversation with a role like this, is the challenge of art and commerce. The tension between commercial reality for the business and creative ambition. And that
Uh-huh.
tug and pull is necessary
Uh-huh.
to create concepts and activations that are going to drive business and also exceed guest expectation.
Uh-huh.
If the business was solely run with an accounting perspective, it would run the risk of being very dry and very black and white. If it was purely run by the creatives, it would have the risk of being a very beautiful mess with a
Ah,
whole lot of good, a whole lot of good intention and a whole
mm,
lot of creative energy,
yeah.
but not necessarily an equal balance of commercial sensibility. So we have those moments and have had them over the years. I've learned along the way the importance of sometimes needing to recognize that you're really to be driven by what will the guests thank you for.
Mm,
Not so much about your own hubris or creative ambition blinding you from sometimes taking the note that
mm,
this
mm,
particular project, while your ambitions creatively are high, doesn't require you to be as ambitious commercially, so temper the creative accordingly. I remember pitching a concept at a senior executive level about 15 years ago in an
mhm,
executive boardroom that I really passionately believed in. And when I finished the pitch with a storyboard laying out the concept, I was asked about the numbers to make that happen. So I covered off the numbers with our CFO and our CEO. There was
mm.
a pause, and the CEO said to me, Michael, this is too ambitious for us right now.
Okay, okay.
And I thanked him and I said, what a great critique. I would rather hear that there's too much ambition here right now than there's a lack of it.
Mm-hmm,
Because
mm-hmm,
tempering your creative vision in accordance with the commercial reality of the business
mm-hmm,
is sometimes required of you. But you should still maintain, as I've learned to do, still maintain that creative ambition and aim for the stars. I'd rather be told at an executive level, that's too much right now, than
mm-hmm.
Michael, that's really not enough. Why are you
Oh,
wasting our time?
mm,
You know? So that's where that resilience comes in. And that's where I'm grateful for that period of my life at a frontline level, then a midline level,
mm-hmm,
rolling with the punches and learning to get stronger and learning to realize that it's not about you. Good
yeah,
leaders know
mm,
that it's not about you.
yeah,
It's an illusion of the ego
mm,
to capture you in your sense of self-importance and your hubris.
mm.
So I had to learn that lesson too at a young age, and I was grateful for it.
Mm. You're so right. Um, well, the world is not all about us, actually, for that matter. The world is not all about us. It's
Well,
just
I often
a
say
little
good
part of
leadership.
us and a little part of us. It's there has to be balance between um
Yeah,
yeah, self
we
and
are.
others. Yeah.
We're required to be in service
Mm,
to one another, and I think particularly for leaders in any industry,
mm,
good leadership is understanding it's a role of service,
mm,
whether it's service to the guest experience, your customer,
mm,
service to your internal customer, your internal
mm,
stakeholders.
mm,
The second you start to think it's about you and a title that you carry,
mm,
you become ensnared with an illusion of what
mm,
you think it's about.
mm, mm.
And that's the deceit of ego, right?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what it's of
So
ego. Yeah.
I've always found the best leaders recognize that they are in service to the needs of the business and the
Mm,
needs of the people. And
right.
that's the key.
Correct. Um, what are some of, the strategies you've used to mentor or guide creative teams to achieve cohesive and impactful design outcomes? This is so difficult. How many people are there in your team?
We're a very boutique team. We have a creative director that works to my side, an entertainment manager that works to my other side, and then we have
Mm,
choreographers and event coordinators and people that will manage the teams that are coming in on the ground and bringing those things to life.
mm,
To answer that question, I think about it as a creative collective.
mm,
I kind of see my role as the guy that has to facilitate a space where the creative collective can come together.
mm-hmm,
And then the role also requires me sometimes to adjudicate. Creative processes are very subjective. You know,
indeed.
it's like any kind of art.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah. It
I
is.
love
It is.
shades of blue. Well,
Yeah.
I detest shades of blue. I really see
Mm,
shades of grey. And no
yeah.
one's right
Yeah.
or wrong. It's
Mm-hmm.
just a question of which creative view you hold. So often I'll even say to my team when we're going through that creative collaboration workshop process on ideas
Mm-hmm.
that we have a ticking clock. We have
Mm-hmm.
to make a decision here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to call it in this direction because this
Mm-hmm.
role is required to determine what the direction will be creatively, to take on
Mm-hmm.
all the good ideas. And
Mm-hmm.
then this role will wear the burden of the outcome and share in the success of it or
Mm-hmm.
wear the brunt of any kind of negative fallout from it. So I find that if we take the creative process as a collaboration, where
Mm-hmm.
every idea initially is a good idea, and
Mm-hmm.
then we'll whittle that down into a short list of actionable creative choices,
Mm-hmm.
and then my role will ultimately help determine the final calls. We'll
Mm-hmm.
attach our commercial strategy to that, so we'll know our numbers required to do
Mm-hmm.
what's needed, and then we move that up the chain to an executive level.
I
So I
see.
guess the
Ah.
short answer there is
Mm.
collaboration, and
Collaboration. Yeah. Mm.
particularly with creative people,
Yeah.
there's a desire to be seen, a desire to be heard. Most people want to be seen, and most people want to be heard. No
Yes.
one wants to feel like they're invisible, but creatives particularly tend to have an inherent desire for recognition and validation. So
Right.
I find if you get them in a room and let them all each have a voice, and
Mm.
then determine where the next steps will be in a very pragmatic way, it
Mm.
seems to work.
Mm. I agree with you because leading leaders, or should I say leading artistic leaders with the artistic personality could be very challenging. I know, I know. So
Yeah,
do you,
and at the same time, they should be. You know, you want creatives to be dynamic people. You want them to
yeah.
be believers in
Mm,
their their creative choices. You want them to be
mm,
passionate. So then you have to take what comes with that sometimes, you know, and
yeah.
it's you shouldn't be surprised when you encounter highly energized creative people. If you're hiring the
Yeah.
right people in that space, they will be
Yeah.
highly energized.
Right.
Uh,
Highly
you're right.
energetic,
I,
passionate,
I,
and stubborn.
yeah, but I've often said to my entertainment manager, I would rather have a stallion that's in a lineup of horses pulling a carriage
Mm,
that just wants to charge and take the horizon. I would rather
mm,
have a collection of those stallions, those horses pulling the creative carriage,
mm,
than ones that are kind of dragging along and not so interested, but they're very
mm,
easygoing. And
mm,
I would like that then to make a challenge for me to
mm,
harness the energy of that stallion
mm,
and steer them to the destination we need to be headed toward. I'd much rather have the challenge of that than the challenge
mm,
of sitting down with someone and saying, hey,
mm.
are you with us?
Yeah,
Are
yeah,
you
yeah.
excited? Are
Mhm.
you engaged?
Yeah, yeah.
What's your intention? Because it's not
Mhm.
clear. I'd much
Yeah.
rather be having a conversation to say that passion and that energy, that fire in you
Mm,
is exactly what we need. Let's, however, temper it, not
mm,
diminish it, but
mm.
temper it in
Temper.
accordance to
Mm.
the corporate needs
Right.
of the institution that we're a part of. If
Mm,
you're a freelance artist and it's art for art's sake and you're
mm.
creating in your own space, in your
Yeah.
own ecosystem, you're free of all of that.
Yeah.
If you choose
Mm.
to
To be
become,
employed.
to be plugged in to
Yeah.
a corporate enterprise,
Yeah.
then there will be certain creative trades you are required to make.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
getting upset about having to trade is
Mm,
kind of a form of insanity.
mm,
That is how the process works.
mm,
It's so again, I don't shrink from that kind of energy. I quite like it,
mm,
and I don't find it confrontational. I find it an exciting challenge sometimes. And
mm.
as I say, I don't think I'd still be doing it if I felt that it was not satisfying.
Yeah. I agree with you, and I salute you for succeeding in that field. I know that artistic people are quite challenging to lead, but for you having succeeded and for you to have stayed in this industry for, I should say, maybe 30, more than 35 years.
Yeah, it's coming up to 35. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I salute you. You must
crazy.
really have been called to do it. That's why you are empowered to do it. Oh, okay. Now, I'm just curious. How do creatives deal with other departments? How do you coordinate with other departments?
Well, we are a very large ecosystem here, so we don't live on an island in that respect. So we kind of have bridges to these other islands in the business,
Mm,
and they take the form of the marketing department and the food and beverage division, the operations division, the technical services support division. So the list goes on and on. Our entertainment casting coordination
yeah.
team off
Mm,
site. So the way in which we do it is understanding that the terrain or the map of that terrain involves many stakeholders, and we have to be very smart about our time and our
mhm,
strategy to ensure that we're getting communication to all those appropriate stakeholders. So by the time we get to a major event term, particularly,
mhm,
we're in alignment. The marketing team know precisely what they're selling into the marketplace, and it's not an overpromise to the market. It's on point, and we're delivering to that expectation.
ah,
We are constantly in some stage of pre-production all year.
mhm,
So right now we have three major events over two parks that we're currently coordinating, and they're several months away. You know, one of
mm,
them's not till the first quarter of next year, but we're in
mhm,
pre-production for all of them.
mhm.
So if you don't strategically manage that time,
Yeah.
that's when things can come undone. So
Mm,
it's really done by ensuring consistent communication, early planning, and real-time updates to all those stakeholders so
mm,
that we can move as one behemoth in the same
mm,
direction.
mm, mm. Okay. Thank you for that answer. I'm um no, at least my mind is clear, and I know how you know how how huge you call that entertainment villages manage themselves. and how they coordinate with one another to come up with such a huge village, entertainment village with so much huge success. Well, I haven't been to your roadshow roadshow in Victoria, but I've been to Disney, and
Yeah.
yeah, one thing that always I asked myself was, about the artistic directors and how they manage to coordinate, collaborate with other departments. So,
I think personal relationships are a lot like professional relationships.
mhm,
If our communication is not fluid, consistent,
mhm,
transparent, and
transparent, yeah.
real time,
Mm-hmm,
we will inevitably hit roadblocks.
mm-hmm,
So it sounds almost like it's too simple, but I often find the answers to life's biggest hurdles are simple when you break them down. It's just hard
ah,
sometimes to implement without getting in your own way,
ah,
particularly if you're creative. But
mm,
communication above all else. And if we're not talking, how can we expect to
mm,
succeed, personally
yeah,
or professionally?
yeah,
We have to
right.
be we have to be talking
Mm-hmm,
consistently.
mm. And um, do you also experience some politics in the office, within the office?
The human animal is hardwired for politics.
Mm-hmm,
We are consistently caught in a loop of that as a creature,
mm-hmm,
regardless of industry.
mm-hmm,
I know many people in many different fields of work, many different industries. When you
mm-hmm,
sit and listen to those people long enough, you
mm,
start to hear the same patterns when
yeah.
there's talk of corporate politics or the political
Mm-hmm,
process
mm-hmm,
in a boardroom or in a culture or in a team.
mm-hmm,
I often liken that idea to if I'm choosing to walk into a jungle.
yeah.
Let's say this corporate entity is the jungle.
It's a
I've got my
jungle.
backpack, I've got my resources, I know that I can chart my course, I have
Mm-hmm,
my water, I'm ready to sustain myself. Now, when I go into that jungle, there's going to be all kinds of creatures.
mm-hmm,
There'll be a lion that's overseeing the jungle. The lion has no time to think too much about how are you doing and what are you up to on most days because the lion's got so much of the jungle to care for. In the jungle, there'll be tigers and there'll be snakes. The
yeah.
snakes don't know they're snakes. So
Mm,
getting angry at the
yeah.
snake is
Yeah.
ridiculous. But
Yeah.
if you tread lightly through the jungle on your first
Mm-hmm,
venture in for some time and start to get a sense of the landscape,
mm-hmm,
navigating the jungle successfully, more consistently, will become easier rather than just running into the jungle. This is how I am. I'm not really listening. I'm not really paying attention. I just want to be heard. Well, you may attract more negative attention from the politics of the jungle than you otherwise would prefer to
mm,
have.
mm,
So you want to go into the jungle and come home and go back to base with the people you love, navigating and accepting that in that jungle there's going to be a certain kind of hierarchy, a certain
mm,
kind of politic.
mm,
Animals do it at a primal level.
mm,
Humans do it. And sometimes we're more calculating about it and
mm.
we have darker intent and we can become addicted to power and ego.
Yeah.
It's the best way I find to navigate that is to accept that that is the inherent nature of people in groups
Mm-hmm,
to varying degrees of intensity.
mm,
If you can't accept the nature of that as a part of the human experience, you're going to be endlessly disappointed and
mm-hmm,
frustrated.
mm-hmm,
So I find again it gets much easier to navigate any kind of politic by firstly accepting that we're human beings and by our very nature,
mm,
politics we're going to have.
mm. Yeah. I understand what you mean, and I can empathize. Having lived 50 years in in this life, so meeting a lot of people, working with a lot of people, I would know what you mean. But I thank you for reiterating the ego factor.
Look, can I tell you, for the first quarter of my life,
Mm,
I was never very good at navigating any of that.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And it was by not being very good at it for a long time that I
mm-hmm,
realized there has to be another way to
mm-hmm,
have more psychological and emotional energy on what really matters than getting
mm-hmm,
caught up in the noise of what doesn't, which is
mm-hmm,
largely usually driven by a politic that
mm-hmm.
is usually grounded in an insecurity or in an ego
An
state
ego,
from
yeah.
another.
Mm.
So, I wanted to make very sure as I got older, I didn't want to become everything that I distrusted when I was 20. I wanted to
Uh,
be, I wanted to be better.
yes.
And I think getting better began with accepting that the nature of the human animal
Mm-hmm.
is this. Now, rather than getting frustrated by that or anxious about it, going into acceptance of it without judgment.
Mm-hmm.
So much of life gets liberating when we can bring acceptance without judgment into every aspect of it. When you accept that every single human being is only operating at their own unique level of conscious awareness at any time,
Mm-hmm.
better or for worse, when you can accept that,
Mm-hmm.
you do largely become liberated from being too reactive too often
Oh,
because you're
yeah.
driven by judgment.
Right, right, right. I can't agree more. Now, you've already said a lot, a lot, a lot. And well, what specific advice would you give to aspiring art directors? I'm sure a lot of people would like to be like you. So, what advice would you like to give them?
As we discussed in our first conversation,
Mm,
one of the lessons that I certainly had to learn
mm,
was to understand the importance of humility if we're going to learn at all,
mm-hmm,
and understand the importance of active listening
mm,
if we're going to learn and grow at all,
right.
not passively
Mm,
hearing,
mm,
actively listening.
right. Active
I
listening.
would say that if you are looking for a life that is creative and artistic within the structure of a corporate entity, develop an awareness
Mm-hmm,
and an acceptance of the nature of how a corporate enterprise needs to operate. It has to have
mm-hmm,
its footings firmly placed in a commercial sense of what it is and how it's going to grow and how it's going to survive and remain relevant.
mm,
That can sometimes be a tough journey for the artistically inspired individual. And again, that comes from the experience of me not being very good at it in the beginning.
mm,
But if you want it, it's understanding that it's a tightrope walk,
yeah.
that you are at one point, and again, I think we touched on this in our first conversation, but at
Mm,
any point, you
mm,
are going to have to pivot and adapt to
mm,
the commercial reality of whatever's happening in that business at any time.
mm.
And those choices will be leading your creative processes accordingly. So having the humility, knowing when to pause on the
Mm,
monologue about creative integrity and a
yeah.
proud exclamation about
Yeah.
how it must
Yeah.
be at
Mm,
this level for art's sake.
yeah.
So, yeah, a little humility going
Yeah.
into a corporate enterprise
Mm,
and a little more awareness of the way in which a corporate enterprise has to operate in order to
mhm.
sustain its artistic ambitions.
Well said. You've been very successful in what you're doing, but I'm just wondering if what's one thing you wish you knew before starting your career?
Listen more,
Mm-hmm.
talk less.
Ah, all right. So only that.
Well, one of the other things was understanding you can't do it on your own.
Mm,
And at some point, you have to bring people in around you
mm,
that complement the vision,
mm-hmm,
are skilled, perhaps stronger in other areas than you might otherwise be,
mm-hmm,
and realize when those people are getting wins and succeeding around you, the tide
mm,
lifts for
mm,
everybody.
mm,
So, I was very driven from a young age and very independent, and I kind of took that into every aspect of my life for the
mm,
longest time. And I realized the path to more emotional space, more mindful space. The path to improved happiness
Mm-hmm.
was to allow others around you to be
Mm-hmm.
empowered to
Empower
shine
others.
and bring
Mm.
to the table what they bring to the table.
Ah, ah. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the best thing you can do as a leader, whether it's in a creative process or not,
Yeah.
is get out of the way of good people and
Mm,
let them run, let them get some wins, let them get some
mm,
failings, let them take some hits, and
mm,
then be there at their side to guide them
mhm,
through.
mhm,
Let them guide them on the path to resilience building.
mm,
So I found my professional life got healthier and stronger and more successful the less it became about me.
mm. I understand. I understand that. So, what's the most crucial trait someone needs to possess in your role?
Passion. If you, I call it the two P's. Passion informs purpose.
Passion.
And
Okay.
if you're
Mm,
operating in a reactive state day to day
mm,
without intentionality, without
mm-hmm.
a fire in your belly,
Yes.
the inherent obstacles you're going to get along the way
Mm,
will block you. And you won't have the energy, the resilience, the enthusiasm, the passion, the
yeah.
drive to push through.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You'll question more, why am I even here? We talked
Mm-hmm.
about the why in our last conversation.
Mm-hmm.
If you're passionate
Mm-hmm.
about whatever it is you choose to do,
Mm-hmm.
passion's the pathway to purpose. If we're driven toward a purpose, behind that then is enthusiasm to push through and
Mm-hmm.
endure when we get obstacles on that path.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get obstacles on whichever path you choose. So
Yeah.
you are
Yeah.
better to choose the path of passion and purpose.
Yeah.
If you're
That's
not
true.
passionate,
Yeah.
if you're not driven for it,
Mm.
don't walk into that jungle and
Yeah.
expect to survive within it.
Mm.
Choose the jungle that you know. Get me in that jungle, I'll do great things.
Yeah.
Just give me a chance. Let me show you
Yeah.
what I have. Whatever that
Yeah.
jungle is, an
Yeah.
artistic life, a corporate
Yeah.
life, whatever
Mm.
it might be.
Yeah.
I'm referring to it as a jungle. But
Mm.
once you determine that's the place I want to be at, and
Mm.
I'm driven, I'm motivated, I have a sense of purpose, those things will carry you through your trials. And if you're not doing
Right.
that with passion and
Yeah.
purpose,
Yeah.
then life will move by at a rapid speed and
Mm.
you'll wake up and be halfway done and
Yeah.
it'll catch you. And one
Correct.
of the things I remember hearing years ago, I
Mm.
think we talked about this also, Dr. Wayne Dyer had that
Mm,
line,
mm, mm, mm,
don't
mm,
die with
mm.
your music still in you.
Yeah.
And he remembered reading a book in his younger years,
Mm.
a Russian novel.
Mm.
And in the final chapters of the novel, the
Mm.
protagonist is on his deathbed and his wife is comforting him in his final moments. And he starts to weep. And she says to him, are you okay? Why are you upset?
Mm.
And he said, I don't know if I've lived the right life. And
Mm.
Dr. Wayne Dyer talked about the power of that story on his
Yeah.
mind as a younger man,
Mm.
that I want to make sure that when I reach the end of the third act of my story,
Mm.
that I'm lying there with a sense of peace that
Mm.
this was the right life. This was the life of
Yeah.
purpose. This was the
Yeah.
life of passion, in whatever form that takes.
Yes. Yes.
And so,
Right.
passion, purpose, leading to peace.
Passion, purpose, peace. Yes,
Yeah,
correct. Thank you so
yeah.
much. I think it's good to end with those three words. And I think we should know our purpose in life, our calling. Then we have to be passionate about our purpose in life. And then that brings peace. I like to add what, well, in relation to what Dwayne Dyer said, that you have to die empty. I think Dr. Miles Monroe has a version of that, which he said that the richest part of a city is the cemetery, because in the cemetery there were a lot of dreams buried, a lot of
Wow.
talents buried, songs that were not sang, poems that were not written, talents that were not poured into the humanity before this person endowed with that ability passed away.
Yeah.
So, wow, thank you. I mean, this is so impactful. I was just trying to deduce answers from a director, from an art director, but he happened to be more than just an art director. He happened to be a life coach.
Great.
And that's why. So your team must be very happy to have you with them because you're enriching them.
Oh, you're referring to me. I thought you were referring to somebody else. Well, that's very kind of you.
Because
Yeah, no,
you've
that's
got a
very kind of
team.
you.
You've got a team who's got a leader, who's got a director, who's also not just an art director but a life coach. So you're
That's very
able to
kind of you.
tap and develop all of them, right? You're able to tap
Yeah,
all the talents, develop them.
yeah, that's very kind. I think that as I got older, I would start to think, particularly as a father as well,
Mm,
when we're gone,
mm,
we are stories. What we leave
yeah,
behind are stories. What
yeah.
we leave behind are memories. Just like
Mm,
we talk about our own parents, good,
mm,
bad, or indifferent, they become stories when they leave us.
mm,
So, as leaders, too, we're writing the stories of the legacy we leave with every interaction, how we are under pressure, what's
mm,
revealed when we're
mm,
squeezed. Are we
mm,
steady? Are we calm? Are we forthright?
mm,
Are we frantic? Are we
mm,
anxious?
mm,
When they're looking to us as team members, what are we sending them as signals of how to be in these
mm,
situations?
mm,
Just as much as it is about parenting. At some
mm,
point, my time will be distilled down to stories that my children will share with their children. And we're
mm.
writing the stories they'll share
Yeah.
today.
Today.
So,
Yeah.
so I find that same attitude in the workplace is what are the stories we leave behind on the people closest to us in our orbit who at some point in time will no longer be in our orbit and we may be
Yeah.
somewhere doing something else and not here at all.
Mm,
You can leave a legacy and an imprint on people that is for the better if you're more consciously paying attention
yeah.
and
Mm,
getting ego out and getting presence in,
mm.
listening more.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sounds simple, but it's yeah, but
Well, it sounds simple, and I suggest that it is if we start to re-hardwire this thing here, because we don't have these conversations at a young age. We usually
right.
have them mid to late life.
Yeah, yeah.
But if we were to have these conversations at a younger age and put it into practice, the
Right.
discipline, the self, I heard once, self-discipline is an act of self-love.
Mm,
The mind is something that's there to be in service to us. It's not there to be running 24/7, generating thought traffic that we simply react to and have a sensation about all day, all night. We're not built to merely be that.
mm,
Once we start to become more present more often and slow down the thought noise,
mm-hmm,
put ourselves in the moments we're in,
mm-hmm.
listen to people, talk more openly from the heart in real time. I'm not saying it's easy. It's a daily practice. I call it the practice of
Right.
presence.
Yes, yes,
Are
yes.
you practicing presence? Me talking with you now, I know there's no other competing thought, no other
Yeah,
competing
right.
agenda or
Yeah.
distraction in my
Mm,
mind
mm,
because I know that I'm talking with you. So
yeah.
it's getting the mind into a space where I'm only here. I heard a line years ago which I loved: be where your feet are.
Yeah.
Be where your feet are. Where are your
Mm,
feet? They're
yeah.
right here. What's
Right.
happening right here?
Yeah.
This. Are
Yeah.
you in it?
Yes.
Yes, I am.
Yes. Yes.
Now,
Yeah.
if you can start to get better at that, listening to your children, listening to your partner, listening to your team members,
Mm,
I'm not saying it's easy, but if you coach the mind and
mm.
condition the mind, it's very
Condition the mind.
elastic. It will
Right.
start to be reconditioned like training a puppy from running
Mm,
around and tearing up the furniture.
yeah.
Sit, stay, wait, listen.
Right. Well, yeah, you spoke about the brain being plastic. I think there's a very good teacher on neuroplasticity called Caroline Leaf. Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh my goodness. You know, Michael, once we talk, we might not be able to finish in a day or 2 or 3 months. There are so much, there are so much things in common between us, and, being into this. Well, I'm not into this artistic, but I've got this artistic inclination in me. That's why I know how difficult it is to be, leading artistic people, because I'm one of those. But whoa, thank you, congratulations for your success, and I hope to meet you in Australia. And
I would love that. Yeah.
well, you're invited to come to Scotland.
One day, I'm sure.
Sure, yep. Okay, thank you so much, Michael. And I think our viewers, if you missed something, if you still would like to say something to them, they'll appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm found on LinkedIn and very easy to find there. If
Mm-hmm.
people were looking to at least reach out and make a connection, say hello or
Mm,
questions, I think the more that we share knowledge and insights
mm,
as a global community, which
mm-hmm.
is the work that you're doing, you're creating connections and creating discussions and sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it lifts the tide for all of us. You
Correct.
know, there's
Yes.
always something to take away from someone at any
Yeah.
time in our lives.
Yeah. All right, so that's it. Thank you so much, Michael. I'm so happy to have met you, and I hope we will continue on this friendship. Um,
No doubt. And keep up
I
your wonderful work.
yes, I'm starting WoW in Australia now, so there's a possibility for us to visit Australia, and we will not miss your entertainment village roadshow theme parks. Thank you so much. Bye for now. And bye for now. Thank you for watching. And thank you for listening to our wonderful guest, Michael Croker. Bye, Michael. Bye, everybody. Bye for now.